What is up, everybody, and Heart here, and welcome back to Cipher Secret. Today we will be reading Chapter 25, Night Terrors. Once the little show was over, the apprentices followed the mentors towards the hallway full of rooms. At every 3 steps there was a room to both their left and their right. The 7 of them stopped in front of a room at the end of the corridor. The door was carefully detailed with strange, unknown figures. Greek gods, perhaps? No, that couldn't be it. The knob was made of silver and shone when the light hit a certain spot. The door itself was painted white, which didn't really contrast with the shiny gray knob. "Alright, this is your room," Bill explained shortly. "There are 4 beds and whatnot. We don't really care whatever you do, but we'd love to see no limbs missing once we come out again." "Aye, aye, Captain," Dana saluted. Beatrice coughed, trying to hide her laughter. Kinnesi rolled his eyes rather dramatically, and so did his brother, but the latter did so with a smile on his face. "Okay, so can we go in, or is there anything else we can do to survive and stuff? Because I'm not really good at the whole survival thing yet. I mean, I've always tried playing Undertale even on the genocide route, and all I did was die. Man, I'd love killing back all those Beatrice coughed again, but this time it was to get their attention. "Anyway, before we allow you to enter, Dana, are you sure you want to stay in the same room? Or do you want a separated room?" she asked. Dana raised an eyebrow and crossed her arms, sounding as if she had just been offended. "What? Just because I have a Okay, I get it. You can stay," Kinnesi interrupted, sounding a little embarrassed. Dana smirked. She won. The demon left the children behind and went to attend to their matters. The 4 of them entered the room and looked around, not wanting to miss any single detail. There were 2 bunk beds, 2 lampshades, and that was it. The walls were yellow and dull, like they hadn't been touched, even looked at in ages. The room smelled like medicine syrup, and for the odd reason that no one wanted to know. Dana was the first one to take a step ahead and choose one of the beds, to which she ended up choosing the left upper bed. "Aw, man, that's what I'm talking about," she yawned. "You're not going to sleep now, are you?" Daniel raised an eyebrow. "When we're on vacations, you get little sleep. I swear, you guys, and God himself, she once went to sleep at 4 in the morning and woke up at 8 in the morning. He turned to his friends, as if sneered, and Dipper shrugged. He always liked to stay up late, but it was more to explore the journal and its depths to that trash post on social media all day. Mabel never really stayed up late unless it was to read the 18 and plus forbidden books that she thought Dipper didn't know about. He knew. "Of course I'm not going to sleep. I just wanted to relax a little because Pen Sword!" After that, she screamed the last words. Dana whipped out her newest weapon, and in all attempt to point it at her brother, accidentally let it go, and the sword flew across the room, landing near Daniel's head. His body muscles stiffened like a board, and he tried to process the situation. "Whoops," Dana mumbled. Sorry, Dan. It looks like the situation slipped out of my hands." She made a pun about it. Dipper and Azaf were snickering like crazy, but Daniel gave them a death glare. "Alright, now we're going to sleep," he ordered, going to the bed under Dana's. Azaf and Dipper shrugged as they made their way to their bunk. "I'm going to stay awake for a while. I want to read my newest book," Azaf explained as he grabbed the old book he had bought. The others nodded and turned off the lights, while Azaf was left with a small lamp near his bed. He passed his hand through the book's cover, made of real fur. He wondered what kind of fur the book was made of, whether it was an animal or a mythological creature, like a werewolf, but it didn't matter. Azaf slowly opened the book, trying to keep the suspense going, and read the first page. Words and more words in demon language that he could not understand, but besides them were their translations in English. Azaf whispered to himself as he skipped to the letter K. "Will it?" he asked himself again. "Can it be?" he wondered. He finally found the page with the letter he was searching for. After looking out each word, starting with K, he was starting to lose hope that the word even existed. Maybe it didn't. Perhaps his mentor, Kinnesi, simply invented the word. Maybe it wasn't even a word to begin with. It couldn't be anything. His first words, an animal sound, or anything else, really. When he was close to giving up, the word popped up on the second page with the letter K. And there, in the upper left part, staring at him and mocking him, after what looked like hours of staring at the word, he finally decided to read it. Kinnesi. Pronounce Nessie. Meaning, traitor, outcast. Of course, questions needed to be asked. Dipper knew he was dreaming. It was obvious. If he was awake, he would still be at the nightmare realm, or back at the shack, but he was nowhere. He was inside of a dark room with no furniture. There were 4 mirrors hanging on each wall, looking at looking as old as time itself. He could barely see anything in front of him, or see anything at all, for that matter. And, to make matters worse, the place was very cold. He only had his t-shirt, shorts, and socks on. Why did he even think sleeping was a good idea? There were 2 flights of wooden-made stairs in front of him, and it seemed as they were about to fall apart. It was a typical scenario of a horror movie. He began walking forward until he stepped on something. Looking down, Dipper saw a piece of paper on the floor. There was something written on it. Even in the dark, he could clearly see the letters. It was an abnormality that he was able to read in the dark, but then again, he was in a dream, or a nightmare. Everything was possible. Dipper bit his lip. Did he really want to read it? Should he stay like this and wait until he woke up in the morning? Maybe he should do the latter, right? But Dipper couldn't resist. He had to read the paper. Focusing on it, Dipper noted how the letters were blurry, but still readable. You're not alone. Not alone? Only one thing went through his mind. Nope. Okay, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. I need to go home. You hear? I give up. Dipper raised his hands in defeat as he turned around to do anything else other than explore the place that he was currently in. He bumped against the wall. Wait, that wall wasn't there before! Dipper whispered and shouted at the same time in panic. Whatever was happening, he wasn't enjoying it. That was a thought situation to be in. This is cheating, he groaned, slowly turning around with the paper flashing brightly like a flashlight in the night. Dipper bit his lip and decided to keep going. There were no doors to that area, just a flight of stairs. Destiny was definitely mocking him. Like he said before, and quoting again, your typical scenario for a horror movie. He was already half expecting something to jump out of nowhere and lunge at him with its might, like what had happened during that time. The remembrance of the event still gave him the shivers. With no other choice, he sighed and turned around, ready for everything. His first steps weren't easy. The floor cracked and whined upon being touched slightly. Even tiptoeing didn't help. Suddenly being in the mindscape wasn't such a bad idea. Then, something told him to stop. No, it ordered him to stop. There was no words, but he felt it within his soul, like it was being controlled by an invisible force playing God. The paper felt warm in his hand again, and then he looked down, deciding it was probably a good idea to read it. Don't look at the mirrors. What's in the mirrors? Dipper asked himself as he couldn't resist. At the corner of his eyes, he looked at himself in the mirror. But there wasn't only himself. There was something else. A pitch-black creature with blood eyes stood behind him, with its gray teeth grinning wildly. Oh, God. Dipper murmured as he looked behind him. There was nothing there. He looked forward, still staring at the mirror at the corner of his eyes. His vision wasn't perfect, but it was clear that he, indeed, was not alone. Go forward, he thought. His steps were loud and noticeable, but Dipper couldn't care less. Once he stopped, the steps continued for 2 seconds before they also stopped. Dipper turned his head around slightly and caught a glance of what the creature he had seen in the mirror. It was staring at him, still grinning. Dipper felt a lump in his throat and continued to walk. Now he could notice it. The sound of 4 feet, and not 2. It was following him. He had finally reached the bottom of the stairs and was ready to get up. Once he put his first foot on the first step, he heard a small whisper, followed by a word. Beware, it whispered. Put his second foot on the second step. The second word followed. Dipper took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. His heart was hammering in his chest. He seemed to be ready to pop out at any second. He kept going up. The faster he was, the faster the words would come out. Child who dwells within another body. And that was the end of it. Dipper had reached the end of the first flight of stairs. 4 more steps to go down until he could escape that hell. He could still feel its presence there, because it was yet to give him the rest of the message. Right now, Dipper had so many questions. The child who dwells within another body? What could that even mean? He stepped on the 9th step. Beware, it uttered. Of am Cipher. Am Cipher? What? At this point, Dipper was suppressing the need to blurt out random questions. It's over. He sighed once he arrived at what seemed to be an attic of some sorts. There were 3 doors in front of him. Choose! The creature roared. Dipper flinched but looked up fast enough to choose the middle door. Like Kinessi had done before, his hand fluttered above the doorknob, wondering what he would see. Finally, he turned the knob and opened the door to face with pure darkness. It smirked at him. Good choice. Leave me alone! Let go of me! Someone yelled in the absence of light, and Dipper knew it wasn't him. Just when everything went quiet once again, Dipper hit the ground. It didn't hurt, but he was surprised to find out that the darkness had a bottom, after all. He looked around and wondered what was happening. The voice that had screamed belonged to a male. The room was filled with the sun's light, and there was a circle of demons around him. On the middle, there were 4 demons, Bill, Beatrice, and Kinessi. All of them had their heads bowed down in shame. The 4th was being engulfed in a blue aura, held down against the floor by Beatrice's physical powers. She seemed to refuse to look at him, as if a simple stare would turn her to dust. The other demon was no older than an adolescent, seemed to be 17 and no more, no less than that. His white hair was disheveled in waist length. Golden eyes were staring down at the multicolored demons with shame and regret, as if he had done nothing wrong, but still being disregarded by them nonetheless. His pale skin seemed to get even paler each second. Bill stared down at the demon with pain. No one could even look at him without a negative reaction. Kinessi kept his composure, showed no emotion at all, at the lack of such thing made him look like a stone. "You've brought shame upon our family!" she suddenly yelled, with her eyes turning from a comforting blue to a menacing yellow. The demon bit his lip and looked at the floor with tears in his eyes. It wasn't me!" he yelled, sounding desperate for help. He sought so much more than the power it consumed. "What the fuck?" he yelled, sounding desperate for help. He sought so much in the power he consumed. "It made me do it! It was telling me what I had to do!" Dipper no longer understood what was happening. Who was it? What was he seeing? Then the adolescent started laughing maniacally. His eyes were no longer yellow, but instead they were now completely pitch black and demonic. There were no irises visible, nor any white skrilla, just black. "You idiots! You can kill me all you want, but I will never get rid of me," he warned in a demonic voice. All presence's eyes narrowed at him. "That's it!" one of the demons said in a British accent. "This hybrid is a danger to our society. He is a psychopath. He must be eliminated, and you shall do it!" He pointed at Bill, whose eyes widened in surprise and shock. "I won't kill my own child!" he bellowed. "You will. We will force you to," another demon uttered as she stepped closer, until the previous demon with the accent held her arm and shook his head negatively. It was a signal to leave them alone. Bill's hands turned into fists as he tried to control his anger and sadness at the same time. Dipper stood up and tried to touch his mentor, but his hand went straight past him. However, as he did that, something happened. Bill shivered. It was like a ghost had gone through him. Dipper's eyes widened as he withdrew his hand and watched the scene unfold before him. "Only a family member can kill a traitor," the demon lady said. "I will do it," Kinessi offered as he stepped ahead. Bill gave him a broken stare. "It will be less painful if I do." Bill bit his lip and nodded, turning his head away. Kinessi stared into his nephew's eyes with laughter and whispered, "I'm so sorry." As he began tearing up, the pink demon inhaled deeply before extending his hand and preparing the attack that would kill his nephew. There would be no turning back. "I'm so sorry," he whispered again, with a stream of tears and sobbing. Kinessi felt a tug at his heart. He couldn't do it. He couldn't kill his own nephew, the sweet child he had once knew. What had happened to that child? What had he turned into? Finally, Kinessi decided he would not do it. Why not play with his colleagues' minds for a little bit? He charged a pink beam, hesitating for a second, and aimed it at the one in front of him. His nephew took the beam gladly as his punishment, and vanished slowly. There, Dipper saw, before everything went black, and Kinessi's voice echoed through his mind in an apologetic tone. "I'm so sorry I couldn't save you, Amy." "Pine Tree, wake up!" Dipper was harshly awoken with Bill shaking him violently. He was startled for a minute and then looked around confused. He was in another room, and the worst part, he was carrying a knife. What the... "Okay, Pine Tree, what the hell are you doing with a goddamn knife in my room?" Oh, so he was in Bill's room. And with a knife! What an unpleasant situation to be in. His first reaction was to drop the knife, and the second was to freeze completely. "Pine Tree, I demand an answer," Bill said, louder this time. I didn't do anything on purpose, I swear." Dipper tried to defend himself, but wasn't sure if Bill was buying any of that. He was dreaming. What was he even doing with a knife? Bill took a deep breath and then a sigh. All right, he said, grabbing the apprentice and throwing him on his bed. What is that? Dipper questioned. Tonight, you're sleeping with me, and I will make sure you don't harm anyone, Bill answered. Dipper raised an eyebrow. I am being serious. He grabbed a chair and put it near the window, watching the night. His eyes seemed to glow even more at the moonlight. Dipper tried to forget the thoughts of the dream he just had, but he couldn't help but focus on the latter. All he could think of was the last sentence. I'm so sorry I couldn't save you, Amy. Who was Amy? Was he Bill's son? And then it just clicked. The boy from his other dream. The one whose creature from his nightmare had killed. All he could do was sigh. Bill, what have you signed me in for? He thought. Still don't know the answer. The mentioned demon responded. Dipper's heart skipped a beat until he remembered. Oh yeah, the telepathy stuff.